So once again, with no further ado, welcome to this incredible edition of The Interesting Part Is. Tonight, we have, in my eyes, two legends on deck tonight to share their story, to share their adventures, to share their wonderful lives with us. Please welcome to the platform this evening, Brother Keith Garrett and Dr. Teresa Dunbar Garrett. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Doing
Thank
this
you
evening?
Great.
Very well.
I want to get the formalities out of the way because this to me is a really exciting time. I've been waiting to sit down with you guys since we started this platform. As mentioned earlier, whenever I'm out and about around any programs that you all are involved with, the energy that you all attract and the way that you all interact with one another is extremely exciting and refreshing. And so when I thought about this platform, I said, what better couple as we begin to reach out and think outside the box to bring on to share their story. So once again, it is an honor to have you on The Interesting Part Is, because once again, we talk to the most interesting people about the most interesting things. And so with that said, what's going on in your world? What's happening right now? Talk to me. What's going on in your world?
Well, quite a bit. We are trying to adjust as people of color in an urban community, which we chose to live in and we're happy to live in. Just to all of the chaos that seems to surround everybody else except for us, because we knew what the ills were and we choose to deal with them and have to deal with them every day. And so just trying to put one foot forward, be positive to all that we meet, and just really take love and compassion from everybody we come in contact with has been kind of our focus and scope over these last couple of months. And then just trying to get used to this new normal. So what else?
Yeah, I mean, she pretty much hit on it. The interesting thing for me is, from a work perspective, all my friends that are starting to do started doing telecommuting back in March, it's kind of coming into my world. This was something I could do at work on a random basis. So I already knew the protocols, the etiquette, all of that. So you hear people talk about stories of cameras being on in the house when somebody's changing, they don't know that the camera's on. Man, I got a little device up here that I can shut the camera off. I don't have to worry about anybody seeing anything. So it's just interesting when you see that the change that everybody has to make working from home, and how stuff that I just assumed people just knew, clearly they didn't.
It was not their norm.
Yeah.
So to me, that was probably the most interesting part of all of this.
That's what's up. So I did my homework and I went back and
oh wow,
Brother Keith, Brother Keith, you are an alumnus of St. Ignatius, is that correct?
That is true.
Okay. Was it a Catholic school upbringing? Did you go to Catholic middle school?
No. That actually, Ignatius was probably in fact, Ignatius was the first Catholic school I attended. Okay.
And Dr. Dunbar, what high school did you attend?
Yes, so let's get this record straight.
Okay.
I was born, bred, reared, and raised in Waukegan, Illinois. I'm from Waukegan, Walktown, where my nephew is a superstar legend. I'll put that in there. Brian Brown, look him up when you get a chance.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So I was born there, raised there, came here for college, and then matriculated to U of I. So I have actually been a Chicago resident 31 years this year, but my husband likes to remind me that I am a Waukegan person. So he still doesn't give me credit, but I am a shy girl.
What you say, 31 years?
Yeah, I'm a shy girl. So I went to school in Waukegan, Illinois, Waukegan West High School, which is now called Waukegan High School, and public school my whole life. So he had a much brighter educational background than me, but I made it in public school.
It's interesting. I went for a visit with my son to St. Ignatius, and in the cafeteria, they actually eat on real plates.
Wow. It's about right.
I thought that was interesting. And the other part is, Dr. Dunbar, so often that you go off to these colleges and you hear people claiming Chicago. and you say, okay, what part of Chicago are you from?
Yeah.
And they say, Waukegan. So I'm not saying I get it, but you in Chicago, 31 years, we claiming you. So
hey, let me put it like this. When you ask me where I'm from in the Chi, I say South Side. They say where I say 89th in Indiana. So I know the language and the drill. So
there it is. There it is. And so you both then wind up at U of I, right? Did you come about the same year? Did you enter the same year?
No, so she came in for grad school. So I went in for I went in for undergrad, and then I left or graduated, and then she actually came to campus. What would that be? 93.
93.
So
yeah.
she came to campus to continue her grad school work in 93. I came back in 94 to do my MBA.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then that's where you guys met.
No, we actually met in Lloyd's sporting goods store. So that's a whole story in itself. We met over the Christmas holiday break and got to know each other then. And he invited me down. Actually, I invited myself down.
Right.
So I just be correct about it. And was checking for some other things. Me and my girlfriends, just a whole lot of frat brothers were around. So we were checking everybody out, and Mr. Garrett rose to the top of the list.
That's what's up. And so we talked a little bit love language, right? When you think, Dr. Dunbar, when you think about Brother Keith here, were you able to early on identify of the 5 love languages, were you able to identify which one was his or which one stood out?
You know what? I'm not sure if this is a one of the 5, but I will tell you what struck me about him. He's very intentional, very intentional, and he was very connected, and reminded me of a lot of my dad in some sense. Now that I look back on it, but everything he did he was always present. And so as I look back on it, I think those are the words that I could use to describe just what I found very attractive. But let me be clear here too. He had a great voice. He has a wonderful voice, as you will see. Wonderful.
You sing, brother, or is she just talking about the tone of your voice?
I think she's talking about the tone.
Oh, okay.
Well, Lord knows I probably better not try to sing in public.
And so then vice versa. When you think, if we go down that same road, when you think love language, I thought that was strong. She talked about your presence and you being present. What were your thoughts when you met Dr. Dunbar initially?
Oh, well, I always tell people she's my social butterfly, and the irony is, well, it's not the irony, it holds that quote unquote opposites attract. I by nature am an introvert. And I always tell people, because they don't believe it, but I always say, think about how you met. 9 times out of 10, it wasn't because I approached you. It was usually somebody either introduced us. I'm not big into idle chit chat, so I could sit next to you and not say a word to you, outside of being courteous,
Yes.
Common courtesy type stuff. But when we met, to her point, it was in Lloyd's. It was me, a guy I pledged with, and then one of our pro fights. The 2 of them are exactly opposites than me. She took down each one of our numbers. Mine was the last. And I tell people to this day, if she would have called either one of them, she would have never met me. the day she called, she hit each of them, and neither one of them answered, so didn't pick up the phone. She got to me, we talked literally that first call, probably about 3 hours.
Wow. Old school, ran up the phone bill.
Right. Exactly. And so I would say to your point of the love languages, I would say the words, for to hear those words of affirmation for her, that's big. But it's, I personally am big on time together. And so that kind of works out too. And of course, it's just the 2 of us. We don't have kids, so we got a lot of time to spend together.
Yes. I find it interesting as we share out with our audience. Part of me inviting you 2 on the platform was to share just that, right? It's okay to be different. It's okay. I think we try so hard to find things that are in common, as opposed to just really understanding who that other person is and kind of bringing that part to your life. Maybe it's a part that, to your point, social butterfly, to your point, extremely present in most cases. And so I like to share with the audience how differences sometimes could bring you closer together, right? Yeah. When you take time to truly understand them. Last part here on this instant, in this compartment, soundtrack. Back in '93, when you guys first started kind of hanging out and spending time around one another, what would you say, if I had to ask you 3 songs, what would you say the soundtrack to that time would have been?
Well, the Whispers, the first one.
Yeah, you know, so
I love the Whispers.
So before we won't go too far down that road. So, you know, if you started with the Whispers, you know where that's going.
Yeah.
So let's just leave it at that. They were one of the groups that were on my tapes that I had.
The cassette tapes.
Yes, he made tapes.
Okay.
Yes, he made tapes.
And that FLO stood for Lovers Only. So I had a whole set. I probably had about 6, 7 cassettes. So,
you had to go on there with a pencil.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
But I would say, you know, I'll tell you this, the one song that I always say defines us is Love's Holiday, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yes.
Literally, the time frame that let's just say the time frame that we met or made it official, the time frame that we got engaged, and when we actually got married, as well as her birthday, are all within a week of Valentine's Day. And so her birthday, our wedding day, our engagement day is February 17th. And then obviously, you know, Valentine's Day is the 14th. So I always call that, you know, kind of our love holiday.
Is he good? Ain't he good?
You put it all together. You a bad man. I like that. See, this is what those little nuggets. You're going to be so surprised. Yes. So, fast track. Dr. Dunbar, I did my homework at age 24. You became a doctor.
27, but that's okay. And that's okay. I appreciate it. I'll take it. I just want to be correct because somebody might want to look me up. I don't want no problem.
No, that's okay. But age 27, I look, you know, average time says you finish your undergrad at about 22, you take you a gap year, you then go and get your, you know, your master's or your MBA, whatever that is, and then that doctorate, maybe you're in your 30s, your early 30s. There was some intentionality once again. What was the motivation there?
Yes. To be quite frank with you, I came from a family that promoted learning, as my mother and father were both from the South, and they were much older when I was born. My father went to the 6th grade and my mom went to the 8th grade. And they came up here in the 50s and were able to make a life for themselves. And I will tell people, even to this day, I'm still trying to find a bad story. You know, I don't have one of those stories. I don't. And from the time that I can remember, my father would say, it's all about your learning. You got to get your learning, get your lesson, because he was, you know, from the South and older. My mother and father did not know the difference between Malcolm X, Olive Harvey, Yale, Harvard, University of Illinois. It was all school. It was all learning. And as long as you were going to school, that was good. That was great. So the reason that it occurred to me in my later years that I was able to be so successful in school is because, number one, I always loved school, always. He has a picture of me, I think I was about 7 or 8, and I was playing school. We always played school, always. I love, and you know who was the boss, so you already know who was who. Yeah. So, and I love to read, and I just love to be around people. And so that mixture of school, the socialization, the internalization of knowledge, being able to create and articulate learning environments, that was attractive to me. But to answer your question, honestly, I had no choice. I had no choice but to do what I had to do quickly to get through school because I had a mother and father who promoted that for me, and that's all I know. If I can be quite honest, I will say this: I didn't know any better. As I look back on it, I know that's hard to believe, but I didn't know any better. And so I thought everyone went to school. Yeah, I never stopped. So I've been in school since I was 2 years, about 2.5 years old. And I went straight through, no gap, no break, finished my PhD with a master's in 4 years flat with distinction. So, and even today, I'm still trying to take a class, trying to figure out what classes I can take. But it comes from the background of having a mother and father who saw education truly as a way out. And I never thought anything different about it. And so when I started going to school, I just continued and understood that this was not my way out, but it was a way to be more and always have more and adjust myself accordingly, whether or not I had a husband. My dad used to say that you get a career, you get a job that no one can take away from you, that they always will need you. And again, in his time frame, that was a nurse, that was a teacher, and teacher was really high. That was good to be a teacher. Or you worked at the post office or the railroad, and those were good jobs for people of color, if you get my meaning
Yes,
back
ma'am.
there. And
Yes, ma'am.
so what I understand and what I'm so appreciative of is the fact that no matter where I go in the world, if things go really, really bad for me, if they go wrong, just absolutely terrible, I have a certificate with 5 endorsements, and I can go and teach kindergarten any day of the week and make a living for myself and for my family. So that's kind of how it was intentional. Thank you for mentioning that. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it was. I didn't know any better, so it's what I did.
That was huge. When I look, former principal, current superintendent, leadership roles. Talk a little bit about the superintendent position and working with the juvenile system.
Sure. Well, just promoted to acting superintendent and excited about that, on my way to the superintendency, and excited about that, and could not have done any of that without this man here. So could not, absolutely could not. And
that's why I rock with you, man. That's why I rock with you.
The support, the advice, and again, his connectedness and presence, which sometimes, we buffer after 25 years in February. So sometimes, we're a little nerve-wracking each other. Probably me to him more than him to me, quite frankly. But having the chance to serve at the state of Illinois level for children youth who are incarcerated, that's the greatest job I'll ever have in my life. It's the greatest thing I've ever done. I enjoyed being a principal. I was principal 13 years and did a lot of good work there, met a lot of good people, and had some good days, and would not be sitting here without that. But this is my ministry. This is God's work. This is it. And I know that every day, even though I struggle, with the fact that there are Black youth that are locked up at an inordinate rate. But the reason that this work is so powerful to me is that I have a young man in my life who, is God, is family, and that includes my husband right there. And then, I'm just gonna be honest. Everybody who know me, it's that prince. It's a prince, and I'm in love with a boy. And as I think about what I do every day, when those gates open, all I see is him.
Wow.
All I see is him. And if something went wrong, I want to know that somebody is there for him like me. Somebody like me is there to serve him. And so I go in with joy every day, but with accountability level for people to make sure that they are servicing those youth. We are the last stop for many of them. Many of our youth have not been to school in over 2 years, some 5 years or more. Some come in with 5th grade, have not been to school since 5th grade. And we are a high school district. And it is a privilege to serve them. It is an honor to serve them. But what I'm focused on is making sure that this district, under the direction of our director, Heidi Miller, who's outstanding leader, make sure that we are giving these young men and women everything that they missed. See, many of them were thrown out in the public schools. They were not accounted for. They were not wanted. due to behavior and mental issues, which I know well because I did that. But right now, the work that I do is so critical because we are their last stop, and we're going to offer to them exactly what they need in the ways that we can outside of public school. A lot of flexibility there to be great with my young men and women, and I'm going to be the superintendent that makes sure it continues to be done differently, highly focused, and at a great level.
Super excited to know that you are a part of that work. And as this information gets out, just really excited to introduce you in that position, and knowing that someone like you with that nurturing spirit, with a genuine kindness to make a difference in people's life. Some people treat these like jobs, and then some others, this is what they're ordained to do. And so that's extremely clear. Brother Keith, now,
Yep.
Did you grow into your profession, or was it part of your first love? I mean, did you grow into your profession?
No, I would say, well, my first love, and I always tell people this, I kind of came in on that, I guess you could say, when we were transitioning to a technological society. I was part of those maybe early techies where when you dialed up the computer, you had to take the phone and put it into the modem.
Yeah.
That was all a big deal. That was the rage.
It was a static IP address.
Exactly. And I had an I had a, what do you call it? The old Atari system, when Pong was the rage.
Yes.
So, Call of Duty is eons, beyond me. So I would tell people that kind of got me into technology. And I said, whoa, this is what I wanted to do. And my father, he worked for AT&T. He did recruiting. So he had connections at different universities. And so I would get into summer programs where I was able to kind of explore this. But again, it was limited. You were either going to be a straight techie. If you remember that movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, that was pretty much what I would do, except I didn't want to go that far. By nature, I'm an introvert. I'm a people person. And so, but the options were either technical or go do something else. So I said, let me explore that. And so that's where my love was initially, was just being involved with technology. When I got to U of I, that's where it really got tested. I literally did an internship at Amoco the summer before my freshman year. Where I worked with a guy doing hardwire, and they were computer engineers. So that's what I was going into. Engineering was a big thing, and I liked computers. So I was like, okay, it's obvious. I'm going to do computer engineering. My freshman year at U of I, came in, I tested into other, higher classes. So, I'm thinking, especially coming out of Ignatius, oh yeah, I'm going to take these classes. Well, that clearly wasn't the move, and fate showed me. I actually ended up getting an injury, hurting my knee 2 weeks into my freshman year. And with all these accelerated classes, my butt's laying up in the dorm. And so I'm missing classes. So the last thing you need to do in an accelerated class is miss a class. And so it showed. And so what ended up happening, had to take a step back, reassess what did I really want to do. I kept trying to do the computer engineering thing that following summer, did the same internship again. But then after a while, I realized this really wasn't clicking. I ended up coming out with a math computer science degree. But in doing so, I realized I want to do something more people focused. So if you look at my career, I went from some education-wise, a straight technical degree, graduated with something a little less technical. And then when I started looking at jobs, I ended up with jobs like analyst, positions that put me between technology and people. And so what I do now is I'm a project manager, which in essence, I'm mainly dealing with people to give them what they want based on requirements they give me. And so that, I would say, what I'm doing now is what I love, because it allows me to have that interaction with people and give them what they want.
But you're still
and I still get to tap into the technology a little bit, but I tell people, probably had I been a little bit more technical, I could have gone off in the Mark Zuckerberg direction. But needless to say, I didn't hang on to technology like that. So, and technology changes, like that. But I do feel fulfilled in what I'm doing now as a project manager, and that's what I've been doing for the last now 15 years.
So it's interesting in learning that about you both. You can hear the love for what you do, right? Kind of ooze out. You tell the story. It's not all roses, but you tell the story of the process as opposed to the end product, right? And I think nowadays with this microwave world we live in, we want it to happen now. I can order something right now, and Amazon will have it here at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think there's a certain beauty in understanding the process, right? And as I sit here and listen to you all and watch how you kind of interact and kind of use each other to build up on these stories, I want my audience to know that the process is important. The process is even more important than the end product, because that's where you learn who you are. That's where you learn struggle. That's where you learn stick-to-itiveness and perseverance. And it's not all, just because you see the nice car, you don't necessarily know how a person got to that,
Absolutely.
to that component. And so
Absolutely.
I want to thank you all for that. When I look to, right, Brother Keith, you and I have something in common.
Sad.
But I started there because we are, first of all, servants of all. We shall transcend all. Brother Keith, a proud member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. What year did you come into the frat?
91, spring 91.
Right, because
fall 91.
91.
Fall 91.
So, right, we're right there. Spring 91. We have a friend in common, Mr. Kevin Cook.
Yep.
He was one of my brothers. We were online together. That's my sayings. What were you born in a house of Alpha? Was it something that grew on you as you went through Ignatius up through the University of Illinois? What brought about that particular fraternity?
So that's actually really interesting, because in reflection, once I became a brother, I had a friend I went to lab for grammar school.
Okay.
One of my best friends actually ended up being one of Teresa's first principals, Dr. Richard Kerr, Sr.
Okay.
And Richard Kerr Jr. is my best friend. When we were at lab, I think I might have been maybe 4th or 5th grade. I don't know why, I know why I remember it now, but the fact that this one memory, I can remember being in the house and we were just hanging out or something, but I could see a pillow on his bed that had A Phi A on it. Now, I had no clue what that was, but I can tell you to this day, I remember seeing that pillow. And so fast forward, going to college. My cousin was a Q, or is a Q. My best friend who not got me into Ignatius, but one of the reasons why I ended up at Ignatius, who went to U of I, he was 2 years ahead of me. He pledged Kappa. That summer before we went down, that spring before I came to campus, he pledged Kappa. Over the summer, we were hanging out, so he was always dropping all these hints about I'm gonna be a Kappa, all this stuff. Didn't really have any major Alpha influences in my life. Like nobody that I knew, like, oh, Mr. Such was an Alpha. Nobody was talking about pledge and all that stuff to me. Outside of my cousin, who's a Q, and my friend is a Kappa.
Kappa.
So I go down to, I'm trying to think. Oh, during that summer, went on a cruise. My cousin, some of her friends, my friend, and then some other people, we were on there. And just so happened one of my cousin's friends was an Alpha sweetheart. She asked me, what was I gonna pledge when I got to U of I? I was like, oh, I'll probably be a Kappa. And then, of course, my boy was there. He's like, of course he's gonna be a Kappa. She was like, you don't look like a Kappa to me. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? She was like, I think you're gonna be an Alpha. I was like, I don't know about all that. Man, I hit campus. We had a big buddy program where they kind of set you up with an upperclassman and all that stuff. Well, mine, she just so happened to be an Alpha sweetheart. The floor that she stayed on, all the Black women that were on that floor were Alpha sweethearts. That fall semester, there were 4 guys on the line that were coming in. two of them I knew from Ignatius, and then just a couple of other guys I just knew from Circle, Pledge and Alpha. And all of a sudden, you start seeing all these, I guess you could say, signs or influences.
Yes.
I was like, huh. And then a couple of my friends that I made, they were also freshmen with me. They were like, yeah, I think we're gonna go check out this Alpha Smoke. I go to, well, over the year, obviously I found out all these people I knew that were a couple of years ahead of me from Lab, from Ignatius, all that were Alphas. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll check this out. And the rest was history. Now, I will say I ended up being the old man on the line pledging in fall 91. But, because of obvious things that had happened over the not mid-90s, but that transition from 89 to 90 and moratoriums and all that stuff.
Yes.
I'll never forget, that was one thing I feared, was that when that happened, I would never get a chance to pledge in college. But they obviously opened it up just before I got out the door, and I made it. But yeah, that's how it happened.
That's a beautiful thing. It's always cool to hear another brother's story, right? Because all of them are different. And obviously one day we're gonna sit down and we're gonna swap stories.
Oh yeah.
When I think about it, Dr. Dunbar, an illustrious member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where did that process start? Because once again, you were extremely intentional about your educational path. Was that in undergrad, or did you do that after you were done?
No, I was initiated in undergraduate, praise God, Beta chapter, fall 1991. And I don't know if we have enough videotape for this story, so I'll just make it quick. The truth of the matter is, being from the suburbs, I lived a very good life, and it was mixed. I grew up in a mixed environment, very diverse environment. So I had friends of all, let me be clear, I had white friends, a lot of Caucasian friends. There were not a lot of Latinos back then in the area. And so when I came to school, undergrad at Loyola, which at that time probably had a 5%, if that, African-American population, that was like mind-blowing to me. And I became friends with a lot of people at Northwestern, became very close with some people at Northwestern and hung out with them. I happened to attend with some other girlfriends from the suburbs who met at Loyola. We ended up one night at a party, a Loyola party, which happened to be the coming out celebration, if you will, for the spring 89 line. And we just happened to take the L downtown, we're going to this party. We some, Black freshmen from the suburbs. It's cold in the winter. We get off the train, and boy, what do we see? A lot of people who I can name right now who are friends of mine, who back then had some very nice cars and some very nice coats and some very nice long hair, and were rolling up with some very nice alpha men. And we stood on the corner and watched that show for about maybe 10 minutes. Went inside, beautiful people taking your money, beautiful, some of the most beautiful Black people I've ever seen.
Wow.
Much more to it. I can be much more dramatic, but I'm trying to be cautious. Get inside and look around, and when I tell you just the beautifulness, that's not even a word, beautifulness. And we were all in a corner like we had never seen such. All of a sudden the lights go dim, somebody DJing, God knows who it was, probably, who knows. And here comes out a line of some women and people hollering and cheering. And when I tell you, some of the most sophisticated young ladies I have ever seen, it was their, it was their show. It was their coming out show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember standing there, and I remember us kind of just pulling on each other. And in our minds, on the way home, all we talked about was whatever that was, whatever that is, whatever I want it, whatever it is, because the energy that we saw that night, and it wasn't about the performance, it wasn't about the clothes and the cars, it was the magic, the respect that they kind of garnered. And so from that moment on, I began to research and met people and was invited to come to, some informational activities. And then I met the graduate members, the women of the graduate chapter, Theta Omega chapter, who was sponsor chapter. And that's when it all clicked. I mean, some high profile women in county government, city government, state government, running things, who taught me excellence. And that's where it really began to fall in line. So I had the privilege of having the undergraduate experience and matriculating immediately after my graduation into the most powerful graduate chapter in the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and just learning from those women. And that's where it really started. They gave me intentionality around purpose. They connected with me, but they corrected me, because by that time my mother had passed and my father, and so they were the ones that kind of helped me to see myself through womanhood. And I will tell you, it has been the greatest experience. It's taught me everything I know. I can stand up to anybody and to anything because of the training I received in Alpha Kappa Alpha. And that's a large part of who I am today and why I am today, through the grace of my mother and father as a foundation. Being older people who believed in being right and being proper and having a good education and doing things right. And holding me accountable, and then matriculating on to women of color, of purpose, who took me further into my 20s and 30s. And of course, having this wonderful man by my side who lets me be who I am, and who is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Tau chapter, who understands that pink and that green just comes all the time. So he doesn't bother me about that. So that's the beauty, I think. We both have our organizations. We're highly functional in our organizations, highly active. Both have been leaders at a high level.
Yes.
And he's good with that. And I'm good with that. Because it brings a lot of purpose to what we can do for others and how we can support each other.
The big give back. I'm going to take a break right here. Hey, the interesting part is where we talk to the most interesting people about the most interesting thing in and throughout our city, in and throughout the country for that matter. On today's platform, we have Brother Keith Garrett and Dr. Teresa Dunbar Garrett. They are sharing their story. This is powered by Esteemed Ambassadors. I'll tell you guys, we've gone over, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to finish, and then I'll edit down. We'll get to where we need.
I think we do.
But as long as you guys can stick with me here a little bit, there are a few more questions I want to get to, okay?
Yep.
All right. You mentioned it, you are both highly accomplished in different spaces and extremely involved. I know I've come to the Links events. I've had a chance to attend a few of the Alumni Chapter Alpha events here, where you play an extremely important role and an invested role. Obviously, you're the president of the local chapter, Dr. Dunbar, of Links. In some instances, right, that can take you in different spaces. Where do you find the balance to stay in each other's space with having such different outside paths and things that you're involved in?
That was a question to her?
It was a question to both of us.
It could be a question. So let me make sure. What my thought was, you're both highly accomplished in different spaces and extremely involved. Obviously, like I talked about earlier, I love the energy when I see you all in the same space. But how do you balance that? How do you balance being so involved over here and so involved over there, but still find time to be in each other's space and be supportive to one another on a consistent basis?
Well, I can say for me, the leadership piece was one. I always tell people, I didn't seek leadership for any of the leadership positions I've had. You know, it was by my work. Somebody looked at me and said, "Hey, Keith, we would like you to be, or have you considered being?" Even when I went to work at Sears coming out of school, the the one thing that was interesting with that one is that I went into an atmosphere where, you know, big company, major, well, at that point, this was mid 90s. So Sears was still on top, you know, operating as it had been decades and decades before, but came in and got involved with a group, and probably within a couple of years, maybe not even a year, got involved with the African American affiliate group there. And within the year after that, became the president of that group. But that was just through, you know, asking about, you know, the usual. Hey, why don't you all do this? You know, now granted, the group had existed, but, you know, just like anything else, you keep asking, eventually you're going to be doing it. So that's how that happened. But with Alpha, my stint in undergrad was short. But as soon as I came out, ironically, her grad advisor was the one that actually got me into Xi Lambda. And I always tell people that our chapter, alumni chapter, is the equivalent of her alumni chapter in AKA. So if you look at our lives together, the interesting part is how, while we individually may be different, the way our paths go, you know, is somewhat parallel.
Okay.
You know, with Alpha, for me, came here, her grad advisor introduced me. She knew the vice president of the chapter. I'm going in wide-eyed because Xi Lambda is like, you know, you're meeting all the heavy hitters in Chicago and all that. So the reputation the chapter had was that young people couldn't come in and do anything. And so as a young guy, literally coming out of college, going into this chapter, I had nobody to say, hey, Keith, come on and join. You know, most of the young guys I knew weren't active. And then on top of that, the handful that I knew that were active were in other chapters. But her grad advisor told me to go to this one. I said, okay, I'm going. I get there, and it was me and two other guys that came from undergrad chapters. After that, the next guy was probably about 10 years older. And he just so happened to be the chairman of the regional convention that was here that year.
Yeah.
And he, as soon as we came in, literally the three of us, he brought us onto the team. Some of his contemporaries, which obviously were still close to 10 years older than us, were chairmen of some of these, and it got us active. Well, what happened was all those older brothers saw these young guys working and kind of took us under their wing. And that set us, or at least set me on a path to being part of that inner circle. So I didn't have that feeling of being shut out, which a lot of people had brothers that would come to the chapter, want to say something, they get shut down. And it's not so much that you got shut down, you just had to respect the authority. You know, you know, we always talk about that there are no big A's and little A's. Yeah. The reality is there are. So you have to appreciate that. But I think that was the piece that set me on my trajectory. Now, to your point of making time, I became president in 2004, held that position to 2008, which is the term limit. In the midst of that, we acquired a property. I was the president for the foundation that owned that property and held that position even beyond my chapter president term. But for me to achieve the balance, you know, I always made home first, but the reality is, you know, eventually you got to take stuff off your plate. So at the end of probably about 4 years after I was president, 2012, so I stepped down as being president of that foundation and basically just went back to being a member. I continue to work on our region team, planning conventions, but that's not as labor intensive day to day, week to week. And so as a result, that allows me to have time here and allows her to do all the organization. I always tell people, she taps out our organizational quota. And anybody that comes to me asking me to join anything, I said, nope.
I'm still moving and shaking. Still moving and shaking. So yeah, we support each other. The bottom line is that because of the commitment that we have to Alpha Phi Alpha and Alpha Kappa Alpha, truly, that's really why it works. Being in leadership positions, and I think at different times, kind of intersecting with each other, nothing was together. And then the other work that I do for the 40 other clubs that I'm in and social other organizations, I think that's why it's worked, because truly Keith is very much invested and interested in me and what I'm doing, and the same for him. And so I think we balance it out pretty well. I think we do. But again, you can't have it all. You have to pick and choose, and sometimes you have to make some choices. And I'm learning that as I grow. He's gotten pretty good hold of it. I'm still learning.
You know what? And I don't want to. We're gonna do this last exercise, but I need that to sit well for a minute. I need that to sit, because that's what I need people to understand. There are sacrifices that need to be made, right? And in a lot of instances, right, 23 years married, you have to put the other person first. And that's not always easy. But, in loving somebody and learning somebody and understanding their love language, it becomes, right, that what they say, and I know this old school, happy wife is a happy life. But even with the intentionality, right, even with that being your spirit, and your love for someone else, it works and it shows. I need you all to know you are here. I have seeked you out for this very conversation right here. And I know that when my audience gets a hold of this conversation, you're going to empower couples. You're going to empower men to be more thoughtful, to be more intentional, to be more present. You're going to empower women to understand what he needs, when he needs it, when to be there, when to be a social butterfly, and when to settle down and just, stand by his side. And so that's what my thoughts are. This last component here, I sent you guys a little assignment.
Yes.
And I gave you 10 words. And I want you both to pull out your paper. And I'm going to ask you these words. Now, these were 10 priorities in no particular order. But I ask that you take these words and you label them 1 to 10, with 10 being however you did it, with 10 being the most important to you, all the way down to number 1. And so I'll just go through the words. The first word was, and I'll start with you, Dr. Dunbar. The first word was integrity. Where did integrity fall on your list between 1 and 10?
Integrity is 3.
It's 3. Brother Garrett, what did integrity fall?
4.
4. Okay. Character. Brother Garrett?
5.
4.
Okay. Family. Dr. Dunbar. 1.
Yep, 1.
1. Okay. See? I know this one. Education. Brother Garrett?
It actually is at 8.
And it actually is at 6 for me.
Okay. Loyalty.
2.
3.
2 and 3. Right there. Legacy.
6.
7.
6 and 7. Discipline.
8 for me.
7.
Money.
That's last for me.
10.
Okay. And then finally, success.
9.
9.
So if you look at it, now you both can look at the
That's
list.
crazy.
If you can
That's
see
crazy,
how
yeah.
those are lined up, that's why I chose you two to be the first to come on this show, because with blind eyes, that energy does not lie. And those interactions that I've had with you individually and as a couple, you cannot fake that, right? And so I want to thank you both for your time. I know it's late, for sitting up and indulging our audience in your lives and sharing some of your stories and empowering and encouraging, the encouraging words. We want to thank you on behalf of The Interesting Part Is. We always want to talk to the most interesting people about the most interesting things. And I will tell you, Garrett family, you have blessed the mic.
Well, thank you.
So we want to thank you. Prior to getting out of here, is there anything that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I'd like to let everyone know who watches this that I think it's important that as people of color, certainly we as women, we understand who we are and what we are, and we don't back down from that. I think that what we can do to help our community and to really, really shore up our community is to support our Black men through being our best Black women. And so I just want to offer that up to all of the people who are married, who are thinking about getting married, who are in relationships. I could not be who I am. I could not do what I do without having a partner who has allowed me to be myself. That's what I most love about him, is that I am nerve-wracking and can be something else. But he allows me the freedom to be my whole self, even when it's detrimental to me and I have to figure it out on my own. And so I would say to all women who are out there, be your best self at all times, never hide from who you are, and seek somebody that supports you and who you are so you can be real in supporting them. And I think that's how I really think that's how we shore up our community. And I'm very serious about that. It's all right to be yourself, but you have to let the partner know who you are. You have to be real so you can support them too.
Brother Keith, you're a lucky man. I want to thank you all once again. It has been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kiss Allen, and this has been another edition of The Interesting Party, is the On the Block edition. Always in party, remember, fly low, avoid the radar. And remember, no matter what happens when they come for the car, save the radio. Thank you very much. We love you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.